Greetings to part 24 of the RFEFP series. Still in lockdown, but staying very sane. YouTube, shall we begin? So what do we really know about volcanoes? Well, the word volcano originally comes from the name of the Roman god of fire, Vulcan. But what is their purpose here? So I must start by saying, just like every one of my uploads, they come with a warning. The information presented in the video might shock or cause you cognitive dissonance. Now I only want to talk the truth to you. Now a volcano is just a mountain, friends, one with fire. And mountain means high land or land on a mount. This mount opens downward to a pool of molten rock below the surface of the earth. So when pressure builds up, eruptions occur. Gases and rock shoot up through the opening and spill over, also filling the air with lava fragments. Lava is hot, liquefied rock that flows from a volcano or a land on a mount. When the liquid rock is underground, it is known as magma. Igneous rock is thus formed when the lava cools and hardens. Interconnected magma chambers and reservoirs are the key driver of the dynamics of volcanic systems around the plain world. So understanding their real nature and truth is an important step towards understanding how volcanoes are supplied with magma and ultimately how they erupt. Most people do not know the real truth about them and their purpose here. But you are about to. So I hope, my friends, that you are sitting very comfortably. Now, mid-ocean ridges in particular make up the most significant volcanic system on the plain, forming a roughly 80,000 kilometre long network of undersea mountains, along which a staggering 75% of the Earth's volcanism occurs. However, because these volcanoes are actually located under thousands of meters of water and sometimes under permanent sea ice, scientists are only just starting to understand what the subsurface architecture of these volcanoes look like. Because now we have the digital technology to see it. And boy, have they got it wrong. Now, what excites me about the plane's water is how the oceans all seem to interact with the land which it rests upon. Yet we know next to nothing about the 72% water we rest upon. They say we know more about the so-called uni and multiverse than we do about our very real water, which is a ridiculous statement to make. This phenomenon is literally what made the Hawaiian Islands and many other human-inhabited places around the world. The land and sea are inextricably linked. As I've said, the earth rests upon the waters, and it's not the other way around. Volcanoes are an important distributor of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, for which our Earth's eco-cycles are able to function properly, for plants and other things to thrive and survive. We need them. Volcanoes are found all over the Earth, absolutely everywhere, friends, from the Arctic to the Antarctic. There are around 1,500 potentially active volcanoes worldwide, so they have played a role in our history, creating the land, contributing to fertilised soil for growing food, and more importantly, providing that carbon dioxide. They make amazing history programs to watch, but also cause sometimes devastating disasters, like the one in Indonesia back in the 60s. Lanzarote, which is part of the Spanish Canary Islands, is known around the world as the Island of Volcanoes, and I have seen it myself once upon a time. Now, my friends, the textbook explanation of magma being spewed out from narrow jets deep within the Earth's core has always been 100% wrong. We know it makes great videos, spectacular movies and special effects, but that's about as far as it goes. Volcanic researchers now believe that these narrow jets called mantle plumes do not even exist and never have done, and they say that basic physics can back up their findings. Surprise, surprise. Now, a professor at the California Institute of Technology states mantle plumes never had a sound physical or logical basis. According to the current mantle plum theory, heat from the so-called Earth's core somehow generates narrow jets of hot magma that gush through the mantle and to the surface, a somewhat almost 1,860 miles down underground. However, the new measurements suggest that what is really happening here is these narrow jets are known as broad upwellings, which are balanced by narrow channels of sinking material, which are called slabs. So what is driving this motion? Well, my friends, it is not the heat from the fictitious core. Oh no, it's simply cooling at the Earth's surface. Something that was actually said decades earlier. In fact, Professor Anderson states again, the behaviour is what's called the regular mantle convection. Now, this was first proposed more than a century ago by a chappie called Lord Kelvin. Now, he states magma, which is less dense than the surrounding mantle, rises until it reaches the bottom of the plates. Stresses in the plates, cracks and other tectonic forces can squeeze the magma out, in a similar way to how water is squeezed out of a sponge. That magma then erupts out of the surface of the mountain, what we know as volcanoes. The magma actually comes from within the upper miles of the volcano's mantle, less than 10, my friends, and certainly not almost nearly 2,000 miles deep below the mantle, direct to the Earth's core, as the mantle plum theory and contemporary science theory suggests. Another fact to always remember at this point is we as a people of the Earth land have only managed to dig down around 8.5 miles with the best diamond drilling companies of the world. Anything said further is just hypothetical and guesswork. With real science, they do find microscopic plankton fossils resting at around 4 miles down. There are about 20 known supervolcanoes on the plain Earth, and these are known as having the potential to produce an eruption with major effects on the climate and ecosystem of the plain. Yellowstone, which is located in Wyoming, USA, is the most famous supervolcano and also has the potential, they say, to be the most powerful. The so-called experts do say that it should blow every 1 million years or so, but we're not sure who's going to be around to see it. Fear is a very strong motivator, friends. We are surrounded by it at this very moment in time, and people will fear what they do not understand. Volcano scientists, geologists, biologists now realise, friends, the official explanation of volcanic eruption and the mantle plum theory is wrong. So very, very wrong. But you will not see any changes in any contemporary textbooks or science books or any videos explaining the real way that volcanoes work on our plain Earth. This similar pattern will occur so very regularly for the unsuspecting gullible masses. It's just much easier to carry on teaching the lies and the non-science based Earth crust theory and the mantle plum theory, which is such a shame. Seeing the ring of fire converted into the azimuthal equidistant projection forms more of a line instead of the horseshoe formation. Now, a volcano the size of New Mexico or the entire British Isles has now been identified under the Pacific Ocean, about 1,000 miles east of Japan, making this the biggest volcano on plain Earth to date, called Tamu Massif. The giant shield volcano had once been thought to be a composite of smaller structures, but now scientists say that they must rethink long-held beliefs about marine geology, as these so-called scientists are still trying to work out the details of how Tamu Massif formed, debating that very question to this very day. Not only does Tamu Massif give us a new wow factor in the form of a giant new volcano on this plain Earth that most do not know about, let alone how they work, but this gives us the new insight into the real truth of the building blocks of an oceanic plateau, and certainly not from a fictitious Earth's core theory. Knowledge from the past to save the future is so often the very case. So snap back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity. If the weight of the object is less than this displaced quantity, the object floats. If it's more, it sinks. The amount of fluid displaced is directly related to its volume via Archimedes' principle without the gravity, friends. Hydrogen, helium, neon, nitrogen, ammonia, methane and carbon monoxide. These are common gases that are all lighter than air. Oxygen, fluoride, chloride, hydrogen chloride, carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide and hydrogen sulfide. All these gases are heavier than the air. Water is different because of hydrogen bonding, friends. Ice floats because it is about 9% less dense than liquid water. So in other words, ice takes up around 9% more space than water. So a litre of ice will weigh less than a litre of liquid water. Now, isn't that funny, friends? They do not weigh the same. The heavier water displaces the lighter ice, so ice floats to the top. We are surrounded by an impassable border of ice, the barrier, if you will, to keep us contained as there is no escape. We are in no such danger of falling off anywhere. Our Earth's super and normal volcanoes are a very much needed huge part for the correct function of the ecosystem and will always be a real flat Earth fact on the plane. Thank you for your time and attention with me. I hope you enjoyed it if you stuck with me to the end. We all learn new things every single day. So don't forget to subscribe if you are new to the channel and hit the notification bell, and also get the app if you want to. It's amazing. I cannot wait for part 25. It's the giant one, friends. So I will see you all then. Much love. This was Nibi, and you stay safe on the plane. Greetings to you. It is paradoxical, yet true, to say that the more we know, the more ignorant we become in the absolute sense. For it is only through enlightenment that we become conscious of our limitations. Precisely, one of the most gratifying results of the intellectual evolution is the continuous opening up of new and greater prospects. Welcome to part 8 of the RFEFP series. This is Nibi, and it's time, folks, to bring down the wall. Now, sometimes walls exist just to see who has the strength to knock them down, and our Earth is certainly one that is certainly watered, it is certainly circled, and the lands of our Earth, along with the level seas, are enclosed by a 150-foot shield of pure ice and snow rock. Very much the opposite of the fictional Newtonian Copernican theory spinning globe. Now, our ice wall is a natural formation, a thick mass of floating ice that is attached to land, formed from and fed by the tongues of glaciers, or glaciers, that extending outward from deep within the uncharted tundra into sheltered waters. Where there are no strong currents, the ice becomes partly grounded on the sea bottom and attaches itself to rocks and to islands. The wall is then pushed forward into the sea by glacial pressure until its forward growth is terminated. The entire coast of the ice wall is not basically one single complete wall. There are actually a series of 1,000-mile long walls that are divided by transatlantic mountain ranges up to 11,500 feet high. The weight of the ice walls are so enormous that they have literally pressed the land 2/3 of a mile into the earth. Under the massive forces of their own weight, the ice walls deform and drag themselves outward. Very large glaciers called ice streams flow through them continuously, transporting ice from deep inland and out to the sea. Now, ice shelves and snow rock mountains are found everywhere, folks, on our plain Earth. And this is the real geography of this world. Greenland, Canada, Argentina, the Russian Arctic, Norway, New Zealand, South Africa, and even in Australia. Most people do not seem to realise that even in Australia, you can easily explore the Aussie Alps, as they're known as, and go skiing. And also in South Africa, at the very edges of the places mentioned, they all have snowy, impenetrable ice mountains and ice shelves that stop any human being from crossing. They are all surrounded by ice and snow rock. And all of the areas mentioned of the azimuthal equidistant map all point to the ice wall that encircles us here on plain Earth. This is an absolute, folks. I encourage you to test this out for yourself. We really are fully enclosed in a wall of ice snow rock, and all of the AE countries that encircle us test to this circle geographically. Now, as once upon a time, the lands were all as one, all connected together, until a certain change needed to happen. So the ice wall was actually discovered by a fellow Englishman named Sir James Clark Ross, a British naval officer and polar explorer. He was one of the first to venture to Antarctica in an attempt to try and determine the actual position of the South Magnetic Pole. He obviously failed at obtaining this, by the way, as we only have one magnetic pole, so to speak, only one apex source of sheer magnetism. It's why the North always remembers, hence all compasses point north, and will still point north in the southern hemicircle of the plane. Now, upon confronting the massive vertical front of ice, Sir James had famously remarked, "It was an obstruction of such character as to leave no doubt in my mind as to our future proceedings, for we might as well sail through the cliffs of Dover as to penetrate such a mass. It would be impossible to conceive a more solid-looking mass of ice. Not the smallest appearance of any rent or fissure could we discover throughout its whole extent, and the intensely bright sky beyond it, but too plainly indicated the great distance to which it reached southward." Now, Sir James Clark Ross and his expeditionary fleet sailed around the ice wall for a number of months in circumnavigation between pit stops at the Cape of Good Hope and his polar expeditions. He spent, let's say, the next several years of his life circumnavigating in a circle, mainly in the southern coast, and vainly in search of a South Sea passage to the other side of the ice wall, with no luck whatsoever. There is no way through. This is why we know that you can only circumnavigate in a circle from east to west, and never north to south, top to bottom of a spinning globe. You simply cannot do this. Now, beyond the 150-foot ice wall, 46 meters high in the southern part of the plain, the Capricorn Tropic beyond, only a select few have an idea of this wonderful experience. Certain Freemasonic people, like the once Admiral Byrd and his crews, during certain military operations called High Jump and Deep Freeze, before he was then mysteriously silenced forever. How far does the ice extend? What exists beyond it? Well, the late Admiral Byrd had crudely mentioned in his now famous or infamous black and white interview, the area the size of the USA has never been seen by another human being. It's beyond the so-called South Pole. I think he knew there really isn't one, as he actually refers to it as the pole beyond the South Pole, from Middle America. And this area of land he describes, folks, as being quite astonishing, that an area this big is still left unexplored, rich of coal and oil and even uranium. So for ourselves, we must try and avoid risking one's life trying to get close to it, because this is a very much guarded and militarized secret, folks, that is monitored 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Much stronger than the famous Area 51 and 52. You see what happens when you get too close to their IFD bases, the identified flying drones. Now, the wall is very real, folks. It encircles the plane of lands on Earth, keeps our waters of Earth enclosed, and the snow and hail are very real in the South Circle portion of the plain Earth. the howling winds and indescribable storms and hurricanes that prevail here, that in every single direction at the very edges, human ingress is barred by unsealed escapements of perpetual ice, extending literally farther than any eye or any telescope can penetrate, and thus becoming lost in the perpetual gloom and darkness of the totally unknown. Worlds Beyond the Poles by F. Armedio Gianni describes the physical land routes from Earth to every land area of the universe about us, which is all land, by the way. Such routes extend from beyond the North Pole and the so-called South Pole, the so-called ends of Tire Earth as decreed by the Copernican theory. It will here be, in this book, adequately shown that there are no northern or southern limits to the Earth. It will thereby be shown where movement straight ahead from the pole points are all on the same level as the Earth. Now, walls protect and walls limit. It is in the nature of walls that they should fall, and we do have one that is encircling us right now, whether you want to believe this or not. Geographically, this is the truth, friends. So in a way, we should build bridges and not walls. Change, friends, is the end result of all true learning. So try to embrace this truth if you can, because it's the very reason why the wall is another real flat earth fact on the plane. It's here and it's all around you like your chi energy. You take care, and I will see you in part 9. Thanks for watching, and thank you to all subscribers. We are all brothers and sisters here, and we are all part of the same Earth family. So look after it, and you be safe on it. And I'll see you in part 9. Keep flat. As one dwells deeper into the abyss of the very real flat science of this plane Earth, we come across a term called abyssal planes. Now, nothing in life is to be feared, my friends. It is only to be understood. So now is the time to understand more so that we may fear less. Welcome to part 13 and the abyssal planes on plane Earth. Now, abyssal planes, you may be asking, sounds like a combination of the words abyss and dismal. And those two words might not be far off when one's describing an abyssal plane. And if you've ever thought of the word abyss reminded you of the depths of the ocean, then my friends, you're certainly on the right track. And the word plane, geometrically of course, usually means a flat, wide area. So when you put those two words or things together, you will have an abyssal plane. Now let's just try to imagine how much water actually covers the Earth. So at least 72% of it. And the abyssal planes are amongst the flattest, the smoothest, and the least explored regions on plane Earth. But on record to date, there is already over 70 studied, and they will be below for your perusal. So the abyssal plane refers to a flat area at the bottom of the seabed at an abyssal depth. So the larger, much flatter abyssal planes may be thousands of kilometres in length and breadth and are generally adjacent to the continent. So very little surface variation is observed in these abyssal planes. and they may vary in depth by only 10 to 100 centimeters per kilometer of horizontal distance. Now, these plains are usually found at depths between 3,000 meters and 6,000 meters, so round about 3.7 miles down, lying generally between the foot of a continental rise and a mid-ocean ridge. So as one gets close to a continent, much more sediment is available to be washed into the ocean, so a big pile of sediment develops and so rises up from the abyssal plain. This forms the continental rise, the slope and shelf. Now, these large areas of flat underwater land have been already estimated to take up more than 50% of the Earth's surface. Now, the deep sea floors have historically been very poorly studied, mainly because of the actual size and remoteness of the abyss. Now remember, friends, over 95% of our 72% water has never actually been explored because it's far too vast, it's far too dangerous and totally unknown. So in actual definition, it would probably be more like 95% or maybe a little bit more, because some of us already know, my friends, that the Earth is really flat. And I mean really flat. The abyssal plains are found in almost all major ocean basins of our plain Earth. But they are more common in the Atlantic Ocean, less common in the Indian Ocean, and quite rare in the Pacific. So as previously mentioned, over 70 abyssal plains, my friends, have already been studied in the 5% it's actually been tested in. Now the Southern Plain in the North Atlantic Ocean is covering more of 900,000 square kilometers, and this is one of the largest abyssal plains on the plain. And this is about the entire size, my friends, of the Kalahari Desert underwater, and is scientifically, undeniably, totally flat. Now with the Helio-Copernican science, how can all of this work on an oblated flying wobbling spheroid that is supposed to be 25,000 miles in circumference with an 8 inches per mile squared Pythagorean theorem for curvature calculation? So this poses a very uncomfortable question to the helioscience of make-believe. Because if one cannot find a simple example where the Earth actually has curves or has some type of this magical elevation drop on the very bottom of the seabed floor, and if one was to go further, if we was to penetrate through the Earth, through the seabed floor, and then through the Earth's core and through the crust, would we come out of the other side? Now this poses a real problem, because we certainly cannot find a curvature anywhere on the 72% level Earth water either, because we've got sea level and telescopic zoom circumnavigation, which will equal to no elevation drop anywhere. And even compasses all point to north, the apex center of the magnetism. There is no south pole, because in the south circumnavigation of plain Earth, your compass will always point north. And even on the 28% land, as we already covered in part 12, but in short, over 600,000 square miles of the USA is geometrically measured as scientifically flat. And also the powerful zoom cameras that you can buy and telescopes, which will equal to absolutely 0% curvature to see anywhere. The fundamental fact, folks, is that the Earth will always test and prove to be flat with real science, because an experiment is a question which science poses to nature, and a measurement is the recording of nature's answer. The heliocentric spinning alien Earth is nothing more, my friends, but a theory with hypothetical measurements and theoretical equation answers, as the laws of nature can only work scientifically with a geocentric flat, motionless, nature-filled Earth, where we all live. For now. And some a lot better off than others. When you stare into the abyss stares right back at you. And if you gaze long enough into the abyss also gazes into you. The abyssal plains on plain Earth are a very simple example of a very real flat Earth fact on the plane. And the powers that be, my friends, have even named one of the abyssal plains the Eratosthenes abyssal plane, just to poke fun. But you're old enough to make up your own mind, right? Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you found this one interesting. And a huge welcome to all the new subscribers. Thank you. And if you have time, please check out the other parts to the series. I certainly look forward to part 14 and something else that we have in the works. Oh yes. And if you are new to the channel, please hit the sub and the notifications. You certainly don't want to miss what's coming on. As always, peace and luck and love on this plain Earth. And keep flat, my friends. Thanks for watching.